Hello. Today I want to talk about one of the hottest debates in AI at the moment. If you scroll through LinkedIn, you'll see hot takes flying in every direction about this one. And as is too often the case on LinkedIn, people tend to take a really polarized position at either end of the spectrum on this debate and then yell their thoughts at each other from one of those poles. What am I talking about? Some people swear that AI is the biggest bubble since the dot-com era. Others are insisting that it's the most important technology shift of our lifetime. And then somewhere in the middle, most people are confused and disorientated, thinking, is AI really a bubble? And even if it is, what would that mean for me? So look, normally I stay in my lane and I only try to comment on areas where I feel like I've got really solid footing and domain expertise. I'm obviously not an economist, nor am I an expert in the shape or the anatomy of what a financial bubble looks like. But this debate has become so sensationalized and polarized that I've noticed it's actually now shaping how everyday people are thinking about whether they should even commit to AI inside of their companies and organizations. And that part concerns me a lot. And that's why I want to translate this "is AI a bubble" debate into plain English that we can all understand with no jargon, no economics PhD required, I promise. So here's the crux of it, of the debate from my point of view. Whether or not AI is a bubble is not actually the same question as whether AI is powerful and operationally and strategically essential. But the two topics are being conflated. So one does not actually necessarily affect the other. So like the dot-com bubble was a perfect parallel, I think. In that time, yes, valuations collapsed and countless companies just disappeared. But also, the internet itself went on to reshape every corner of business and society. It's now the technology that we rebuilt our world upon, right? So I see AI following that exact same path. Whatever happens in the financial markets, whatever happens to the actual AI companies, the AI itself will continue rewiring our businesses and our personal lives at ground level. To say it another way, AI itself is not a fad. It's rapidly becoming foundational to our world. I see the real danger as letting the noisy speculation, like is AI a bubble, if that speculation clouds the real conversations, which is how to make AI, the technology, work for your business and your life. So to make sense of this and to write this essay, I've actually based the thinking on one of the cleanest analyses that I've seen of this "is AI a bubble" topic. It's an essay by Azeem Azhar, which I'll share a link to that essay below this video. Azeem Azhar is one of my favorite AI commentators to follow, and he wrote an essay recently in which he created basically like a 5-signal dashboard of things that we should be watching to see whether AI is actually moving towards a bubble or not. And what I liked about that is rather than just using vibes and opinions, which is what most of this kind of polarized debate seems to live on, Azeem actually looks at these signals and he's based them on the signals from history, what history has told us about the things that matter when it comes to booms and busts. So he's looked at like past boom and bust cycles, like the US railways being built, the large telecoms and their investments, the dot-com bubble, etc. And so he's brought those forward and he's given us this almost like a cockpit view of these 5 signals that we can check to see if things are actually overheating too much in AI. So in plain English for you, here's those 5 signals that we should be watching. First one is economic strain. So are we spending so much on AI that it could actually bend the whole economy out of shape? And on this dial, AI spending is big at the moment, but it hasn't hit like runaway crazy levels. So The bit to watch here is that right now in the US, most of the country's growth is actually being powered by technology spending. It has been for a while, but especially so in the last few years of the AI era. And that spending, that tech spending, is especially happening in data centers, building data centers. So if that spending, if we notice that spending slowing down or stopping, that could actually drag the whole economy down quite quickly. So that's number one. Number two is income. Are the tech giants are they actually making enough money off AI to match the huge spending that they're making on it? So history, as Azim says, shows that problems come when the bills grow faster than the income. Like, for example, from the past, the US railway project, at one time, they were spending twice as much as they were earning, right? It was actually worse in the late 90s. The telecoms were spending 4 times their earnings. Right now, generative AI is spending about 6 times more than it makes across the industry. And Azim's take on that is that that's a big stretch, but crucially, the demand for the technology is still really strong, which is why it's probably, this one's like a warning light, but not a full panic. Revenue growth, number 3. Are sales of AI growing quickly enough to catch up with all of that spending that we just talked about? And at the moment, the answer is yes. Revenues from generative AI across the board are doubling each year for the past few years, and forecasts say that kind of rapid growth will continue at least into 2027. So we're okay on that dial. Valuations is the 4th one. So i.e. are stock prices floating, of stock prices of the tech companies, are they floating too far away from real earnings? The comparison here is that back in the dot-com peak, the stocks of those dot-com companies were priced at about 72 times what they actually earned. Today, with the AI companies, it's closer to 30 times. And so that's high, but it's not wild. So the verdict here is that the stock prices, this dial, it's hot to the touch, but it's not burning, right? And so the last thing to watch is like, who's footing the bill for this technology development, and how are they paying for it? And so at the moment, the AI companies, they're paying for their AI developments with their own cash. And so that's steady and it's safe. The risks would be if we start to see lots of smaller AI companies, like lots of them, borrowing really heavily and needing fast profits to pay back that tech hardware that they've invested in, like the GPUs and the data centers, that lose value really quickly. And so that's where the cracks could appear if growth slows in that area. So put all of that together, how do we monitor those 5 signals, and what might we see happen that would signal a boom, which it currently is, tipping towards a bubble? So here are 4 simple like tripwires that we should watch out for. So if spending on AI gets so big that it makes up about 2% of the whole US economy, or if the big tech firms suddenly cut their building projects, their data center building projects for several years. So that would be one tripwire to watch for. The second would be if demand for AI tech drops. So that, very simply, that would look like if NVIDIA has fewer orders for their GPUs waiting, right? And we should also watch for if stock market prices shoot up too far, if the AI company values start going into the range of being more than about 50 times higher than their earnings. And the last one would be if we saw like less than 25% of the money being invested into AI tech development comes from the tech company's own cash reserves. If they're starting to borrow really heavily instead. If we saw 2 or more of those tripwires go off at the same time, then we're starting to look into bubble territory. So let me give you some talking points here. How might you actually use this in conversation, either in business or with colleagues, or if it just popped up over coffee, if that's the type of thing that pops up in your coffee conversation? I'd suggest that you anchor your comments in signals, not just sensationalized slogans like happens on LinkedIn. So here are some like simple lines that you could borrow. You could say, at the moment, AI looks like a boom, not a bubble, because the demand for the tech and sales are still climbing fast. We could say, look, stock prices are high, yes, but they're not crazy. The NASDAQ, which is basically the main stock market for the big US tech companies, is around 30 times earnings today compared with 72 times at the dot-com peak. Talking about funding, we could say, well, look, funding actually looks fine for now because the biggest players in the industry are paying for AI development with their own cash. And then, you could also say, those are the things to be tracking. And if two warning signs show up across those things at the same time, then that's bubble territory. But at the moment, we're looking like it's an AI boom rather than an AI bubble. And so that's where I think the nuance of this conversation really matters. And it's why I get frustrated by AI commentators who just toss hype bombs at each other from polarized ends of the spectrum, because these things can be true together, right? Investment in AI is stretched at the moment, but the demand for the tech is also really strong. And so both of those things can be true at once. And so whether or not AI becomes a bubble will depend on whether those revenues and the demand for AI keep compounding over the next few years. We should also remember a hot stock market, like the fact that NVIDIA and these tech companies, their valuations keep going up, that doesn't automatically mean a bubble. And here's my final and probably most important reminder is that let's not confuse two conversations and merge them together. The financial cycle, i.e. boom or bust, is not directly correlated to the technology itself. So what I'm saying is, even if an AI bubble forms up and then pops, in my opinion, that doesn't mean AI will suddenly disappear. Like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Anthropic, those companies are not going to fall over and disappear. It will be the smaller players around the fringes. And AI itself will continue to remain the foundation on which we're going to build our next generations, just like happened with the internet. The dot-com bubble was the end for a lot of businesses, but it wasn't the end for the internet. So to summarize all of that, is AI a bubble? Not right now. Today, it actually looks like a really demand-led, capital-intensive boom. But yes, we should be watching for those signals. And if a couple of them start flashing red together, then it's probably bubble time. But in the meantime, please, can we all just sift through the noise and keep reminding ourselves that whatever happens on Wall Street, for us normal people, AI is here to stay, and it's here to reshape the way we work and compete and grow. So I hope that's been helpful. If nothing else, now you'll at least have some chat for the next time someone at a dinner party insists that we're living through an AI bubble. Hope that chat helps. You're welcome, party animals.